Red is the color of fire. It's the color of hell. It's the color of war. It's the color of the subject that I paint. This is very important. It's the tension. There's a lot of tension there. You see, when I am making a painting about a war scene, human suffering, human brutality, the red seems to come up, to stand up, to bring something in the painting. I love to paint large size because the subject necessary. I would like to cover every inch of the wall with my paintings. Moving murals. They're not stable. They are holding. When you come in, you enter this universe. You either become involved with it or you leave. But I make it very difficult for you to escape. I try to entrap you inside within this environment. So you are in, you almost imagine yourself, you are inside a hellish war scene. It is the scene of fire. It is the colors of fire. It is the tension.
When you stand in front of those massive pieces, you don't know whether you should smile or cry.
It's really a whirlwind. I don't know if I've ever seen an artist that has done what he did.
When you're close to it, it's impossible not to feel something.
He wanted to create something confrontational.
فنه كتير يستفز.
He never really sold any of his works.
It was not in the world in the way that we all felt that it should be.
It's not just an exhibition showing one world, oh, it's wonderful, beautiful. No, it's much more than this.
What is unique about Nabil Kanso's art is that I keep calling it a fabric. He created not only a specific language, but a certain fabric that he would weave all the time with colors that were not descriptive as much as they were psychological. The color gives you the impression of blazing, as he calls it, blazing vortices, people sucked into a vortex that takes them to a center. And then you just find there is always this light that erupts from that center.
The subject of Nabil Kanso could not be more appropriate than it is today. When people ask me, are you okay? My response is, well, this isn't our first time to the rodeo. We've been to this movie before and we're used to it. And nobody should be used to anything like this.
Especially right now, where it just feels like you're always on this precipice. And my relationship with Lebanon is developing in a real way. I saw both the romantic view of and also kind of the realistic. I mean, I feel like now people are almost tired of being called resilient because it's something where you want to move on. What is all of this for?
ما حدا بحياته ربح بأي حرب منذ فجر التاريخ. الحرب ما بتوصل إلا لخسارة للجميع. بس بكل أسف نرجع منكرر حالنا، ما بنتعلم، نرجع منعمر وبيرجع بيجي مين يهدم. سبحان الله سنة الحياة.
We see what's happening right now. We see what continuously these cycles of never-ending, violence and wars, and it's very frustrating. And I think that, many people are very frustrated because it feels like, how do we actually make change? How do we create peace?
He painted about war most of his life. Painting for him was life. And he was very disturbed by what was going on in many wars, including the Vietnam War, including the Lebanese Civil War, including the Arab-Israeli issue, including the Gulf War. Nabil Kanso's work is brilliant. I mean, I remember the first time I saw my paintings. When you stand in front of those massive pieces and look at them and you see the vibrancy of the color coming through the painting, you don't know whether you should smile or cry. That's the kind of very visceral reaction you get out of his pieces because they're so beautifully done and yet so dark. I would say he is one of the most important artists of his time.
Till date, as I am speaking, we are still in an inferno. I think if Nabil Kanso would have witnessed what is happening in Lebanon nowadays, I think he would have gone mad, trying to grasp how on earth could humans be in constant conflict for more than 7 decades. So that's why this exhibition is so much timely. It's a message to humanity to face its self-destruction.
It's really a whirlwind when you look at it. It's nothing that you can pin your head on. And I don't know if I've ever seen an artist that has done what he did in terms of protest art. They're very much alive and they stay with you. And it stayed with me for a while. He is very much unknown and such an unfamiliar figure that people don't know who he is.
He was very, very proud of what he's doing, and I just wish to God he got famous before he died. I really wish. Nabil was Lebanese and I'm Syrian. He was Druze and I was Muslim. So that was a big problem for my parents.
I always felt a relationship to the work. And I mean, I think when you see it, when you're close to it, it's impossible not to feel something. I had a close relationship with my father when he was alive. We spent a lot of time together. But since he passed away, I feel like I've gotten to know him kind of in a new way. And almost rediscovered parts of his life that I didn't know about. His work, have kind of developed a new relationship with him. He always stood out a little bit, it was growing up, your father does what? He makes what kind of paintings? He's an artist? What does that mean? So I was always used to explaining that he was a very caring person, a very caring father, very invested in us. If you met him in his studio, you might say, have one impression of him by looking at the work, but then I think it would probably change very quickly if you spoke to him. Very quickly you would notice that he's very gentle, very kind of not overbearing, curious about you. I mean, I think he was always learning. I mean, always really curious.
I was very, very close to my father, and I always sort of saw his work as a part of him. There was really no separation for me. I think I probably spent so much time just thinking, God, I would give anything to talk to him now and ask him more questions. The work was like a sibling to us. It was a part of our family. There was no separating the work from our dad. We were so immersed in it always. And I think to take a step back and see the work from this perspective, it just honestly blew my mind. When our father passed away, there was absolutely no question in the world that we're going to do everything in our power to, bring the work into the world the way he sort of dedicated his life to doing.
An artist cannot detach himself completely from the world, make believe that we don't live in this world. We are part of it, and we respond to it in an artistic way. So what would the artist sit aside and do something completely different? I always thought we have to be involved. So at that time, it was art for art's sake, but we could not touch political subjects. But I touched them and I immersed myself into them. When you paint so much chaos, so much war, so much human suffering, so much brutality. But this is something that exists. It is a continuation. It's perpetuating, it is affecting our life.
In reality, we are looking at a figure that dedicated himself to protesting war across the world. It's always done from a lens that anyone that has seen or read about trauma can relate to it. So there's a very global impact in the work.
He really believed that art could change the world and that art could have a profound effect on human beings, and that it could bring us together and that it could help to erase whatever divisions that we might see, whether it's race or religion or nationality or whatever it might be.
He really believed in art being just a vehicle for having these conversations, for opening up pathways for people, for creating conversations in ways that like other forums just couldn't do.
You know, he chose the mural because he wanted to create something confrontational. He wanted to create something that made you stop and say, like, wait a minute, this figure on the canvas is the size of me.
Anytime he felt like something, anytime we would be sitting down eating dinner and he's like, I have to go. And he'd go to the studio. Like, it meant everything. It meant his livelihood. The bigger it was, the best it was. He loved to paint big paintings.
فنان مثل نبيل منه فنان ديكوراتيف، أعماله ما بتقدري توقفي قدامها بدون ما يكون عندك انفعال معين. فنه كتير بيستفز، كل ما بتشوفيه بيحاول انه يضربك بوكس اللي تذكروا الى اخره. كانت الفكرة انه بدنا نعمل عودة لهذا الفنان العظيم. بكل اسف ما صار هالشي وتوفى سنة 2019. بس ضلينا عم نتابع المسيرة أنا وعائلته منشان نشوف شو فينا نعمل. كان كتير بالنسبة لي مهم أنه هذا الفنان يدخل بشكل أساسي إلى المتاحف قبل ما نفوته إلى عالم المعارض. واشتغلنا يعني بأول مرحلة أنه يفوت على الهاي ميوزيوم بأتلانتا، لأنه كان كتير ضروري أنه يرجع يعترف به في المدينة الأم تبعيته.
The High Museum, he would have turned in his grave. He loved the High Museum.
كان عم بيعمل معرض هائل بأتلانتا حول أوبرا أوتيلو عطيل، وعمل 100 لوحة كبيرة. يعني كان معرض هائل مسف. بس يومين قبل الافتتاح بيقرروا إنه يلغوا المعرض بداعي إنه عطيل كان لونه أسود، وهو بالحقيقة كان غامق لونه.
We hung every single piece. And then when we were done, we went home with like, okay, perfect. This is perfect. We came back and everything was on the floor. It was devastating. It was devastating. He's like, see why I don't want to live here. I don't want to live in Georgia.
خصص كل باقي الوقت حتى يعرض ببلاد مختلفة، سواء كان فنزويلا، كولومبيا، بالكويت، عرب.
I've had many obstacles, almost continuous, but I have never stopped to paint. I have continued to do this regardless. My subjects and the theme of my painting was rejected by almost every gallery. They always consider either too political or too much about war or too much of this, or the expression was totally foreign. I have always stood in isolation all my life.
He closed himself down. He didn't want to sell any of them. I think there was an incident with one of the museums. He had painted something that was not popular at the time. His show got canceled because of that. And when that happened, he decided he didn't want to be involved in the art market. He said when he dies, his children will figure out what to do with his work and how to make him relevant and famous.
بعتقد انه عزل حاله وصار يشتغل لحاله لإله، يعني صار عم بيوجه الرسالة بعزلة هذا المحترف.
He raised his family, had his family in the US, lost everything he had over here, moved from New York. He kind of lost everything there as well. At one point also had to kind of shut down his studio in Atlanta. He's had a very tumultuous life.
There was a lot of struggle. There was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of pain that he felt because of that. He was only ever an artist. You know, he didn't do anything else. He didn't have another job. There wasn't a way that he made money to support our family. So it was always sacrifice. It was always uncertainty. How am I going to keep a roof over our heads? How am I going to keep food on the table? And because of that, my mom also made a lot of sacrifices.
We struggled a lot, but Wonderful. He was hurt. We would go every day and pack stuff and bring it. And he had a truck, so that was the easy part. Like you can imagine my house, how it was.
He never really sold any of his works, and he just kept painting and painting and painting and painting and painting. He was religious about it almost daily.
If you're not selling anything, if no one is supporting you, if you don't have patrons, then you're left alone, and you feel alone. And you feel all of this on your shoulders, that if I don't find a way to get by the next day or the next month, I could lose everything. You have no cushion. You have no safety net. You know, you're always kind of on the edge of destruction. And so that's how he lived, unfortunately.
He could have easily just said, like, why am I doing this? Like, what am I doing with this work? Where do I put, how do I continue to like store these massive murals? And he never gave up. And he never, ever gave up the mission he had and the passion he had and the reason for creating the work. And that inspires me a great deal to see that level of commitment.
As accessible as he was, you know, having a studio in uptown New York and people walked through and saw it, he was, like many other marginalized artists, a little bit forgotten.
I live to paint. Without painting, I cannot function. It occupies my mind, it occupies me, and there is so many images in my head that I have to project them, transmit them. And in my experience, I found that the best way to transmit all these feelings is into canvases.
Once he does focus and kind of locks in, it's very difficult for him to come out of that. I mean, it's almost like he goes into a little bit of a trance. He can't break his concentration.
It's like being with an encyclopedia. You know, he knew every work, every background, every artist, he had this very encyclopedic brain about art, about history. Like he loved history.
كان شخص كتير مثقف ولوحاته بتنبنى على دراسات معمقة للتاريخ أو للحالي. هو مش هيك بفيق وبشوف شغلة وبيرسمها، بيدرسها وبعدين بيجي وقت الرسم.
We all know that Kanso is known for his epic and monumental paintings, but however, he produced 242 ink drawings between 1980 and 1992. This body of work constitutes the series entitled Leaves from the Theater of War. He translated the title to Arabic, English, French, Spanish, and German. He uses very erotic depictions of the human being to show maybe how invasive in destruction or invasive in corruption man can be. Their dark humor. You think that he is making fun of leaders, but he is so much critiquing their performance. Very much resonates with one of Arif Al-Ray's series that he also addressed. Arif Al-Ray was very much friends with Nabil Kanso.
As a kid, he would literally tutor me, he would teach me, we would talk a lot. Very philosophical, cared a lot about literature, a lot about art, making sure that we knew these things about the world, that we were connected to more than just, kind of what's happening day to day, but that there was some depth in our lives.
The guy, he's not unsophisticated, let's put it that way. He's very sophisticated.
بنشوف انه رسالته ما زالت كتير حلية، كتير هلا وقتها.
At a certain point he became so protective of it that he wouldn't let it go. And that he wouldn't allow it to be shown, for example, in a way that he didn't completely agree with.
Because his work was his. He's like, this is my painting. This is my child. This is how I feel about my paintings, the way I feel about my children. I love my paintings and they're mine. I don't want to sell them to somebody who doesn't appreciate them.
هو كان متطلب، هو كان بيعرف قيمة حاله. منشان هيك كان صعب انه الاعمال تكون معروضة بستاندرد معين، انه تكون عم بيتلقوها الناس، عم بيعطوها جدية حقيقية. مشان هيك تعذب، كان يعطي عصارة حياته بهذا الموضوع.
He refused to let people handle his work without him being there. He thought people were going to destroy his work.
We are still extremely protective of the work because of that. But at the same time, I think there is a tension there because you want it to be in the world. You want people to be able to interact with it. You need it to be part of the conversation.
هو من الواضح أنه كان أخذ هذا الموضوع محمل الجد. يعني هو ما عمل شيء بحياته غير رسم، ورسم ما كان عم ببيع. يعني عذب حاله وبما لا يقبل جدل عذب عيلته، بس بمكان ما عرفين أنه عم ببشر بشيء ما حدا بده يسمعه، عم بيحكي عن موضوع كل الناس حاطين له ديني طرشة.
He wants you to stand in front of those huge murals and get really absorbed into the state of mind that he was in while he was painting those artworks. And no one wanted to face such realities.
Most of the people here, they turn their back, they say this is nothing to do with us. But it is. Thousands of people, thousands of American soldiers have been killed. Their family have been orphans, they have children, they have wives. Was it worth it? And now today we have another war.
He showed his works quite a bit. He never sold any of them. They were doing his diplomacy through art thing, which he firmly believed in.
It was not in the world in the way that we all felt that it should be. He was always trying to find an audience for the work. And when, he would show it, I mean, often he'd have these big exhibitions and he'd get a strong reception, but then there wouldn't be like an aftermath. Like I saw that pain in him when those things wouldn't happen.
He wanted a foundation. And he kept telling you about it, kept telling Lilly about it all the time. He wanted the work to be seen.
Nabil was like a blank canvas. When you think of protest art, you think of Leon Golub, you think of Kiefer, and then you start positioning Nabil in a larger landscape.
In summary, Anso's work exists at the intersection of dark romanticism and neo-expressionism. He confronts the darker dimensions of humanity, war, death, spiritual anguish, and apocalypse. But simultaneously, he always searches for transcendence. He uses aggressive brushstroke, fragmentation. You see tormented bodies, you see hybrid bodies made out of humans and animals at the same time, eyes bulging, hands reaching for salvation, and you see monumental figuration, which transforms the painting into an emotionally and morally charged experience.
I think the beauty of our profession is that we have the responsibility to rewrite the narrative. And contemporary art history, I think, is one that allows writers and curators and art practitioners to really push the boundaries of how we can position forgotten artists that have an incredibly important role in contemporary art history.
Like, what is he? Is he Lebanese? Is he of the Arab world? Is he American? Everyone seemed to consider him something else or someone else, and always feeling like you're kind of displaced.
In one painting that's going to be in the show, you see a figure of a horse that is emerging within the painting. And then you see figures also moving out of the painting, which I think is incredible because it's almost like they're moving out of war. And there's many incredible moments of that, moments of escape.
There is always hope in everything because the sky is covered with so much fire, with so much mist. But also, somewhere in every painting, you'll find this little bit of green somewhere. It's hope.
I think like a lot of the work comes down to what is the meaning of life? What are we as humans here to do? How do we express ourselves? How do we interact with each other? What do we leave when we're gone?
In these times, in these most challenging times, is when we need art the most, and when we need people creating this kind of dialogue the most.
Anso refused indifference. He somehow waged war on war, such as one of the articles in Arabic that says, لَقَدْ أَعْلَنَ الْحَرْبَ عَلَى الْحَرْبِ. Certainly a protest artist that is putting all of this in front of the eyes of most of the leaders internationally to tell them, this has to stop. This has to be addressed.
They're difficult to look at. Yes, they're difficult to look at. Life is difficult to look at, but when people have an opportunity to look at something, and that confrontation is very therapeutic if you think about it, psychologically speaking. It gives people something to identify with.
He would say that the work needs to be shown more than ever right now, that it's very important for people to see it and to both feel kind of the relief that comes with it. I think it's very important that you do feel these things and that you express them and that you acknowledge it and that you talk about it. It brings out ideas or conversations that we might not have had otherwise.
I mean, growing up, art really was religion to us. You have to continue to look to art in the darkest times because it makes a difference. It changes the conversation. It changes the way you think. It changes the way you see.
The fact that he continued, that he never gave up, shows that he believed that something better would come.
The more you see the work, you will see moments of light there, moments of hope. And he shows you that in the darkest possible way. They're very optimistic and hopeful works when I see them the way I see them now that I know the work. And I think this is a remarkable opportunity to have the work here in Beirut.
It's just intended to be there in so many ways. Lebanon is such a huge part of who he was and who we were and how we grew up, and Lebanon was always there.
It's not a particular thing that really strikes you in any one of his paintings. It's an emotion that his style drags out of you or sucks you into. When I look at how brilliantly they're crafted, they're put together, the subject matter, the choice of color, the light, some of them look like they have light coming out of them from behind. That's how brilliant this artist is. That puts a smile on my face.
Nabil is coming back home as an international artist. He's coming back as a star.
If I didn't think that there was value in his work, I wouldn't be picking up more and more his work. Every phase of his practice is even more interesting than the previous one.
هالفنان عطى كل شيء، يعني فعلا عصارته حتى بهيدي اللوحات صحيح ما تقدرت بوقتها.
Showing in Lebanon is the most important thing for him, and he wanted to do it so badly. He wanted to be recognized as a Lebanese artist. He was never recognized.
الفن رسالة وهي بتخاطب اللي جاي عباله أن يخاطب. اللي جاهز إنه يشوف بيشوف، واللي منه جاهز وما بده إنه يشوف ما حيشوف. بس هو هيدا المطلوب، مطلوب إنه نذكر إنه من أيام زهير بن أبي سلمى، من أيام الجاهلية، وما الحرب إلا ما علمتم وذقتم، ومش عم نتعلم.
I see something more cathartic in the work. I mean, I really do see a fundamental beauty and hopefulness and a playfulness sometimes. I mean, I think he would still be optimistic that Lebanon's best days are in the future and that they're ahead of us.
So many people that we've talked to in Beirut that come see the work, it's like they see it from a different lens. You know, they see it from a lens of like such a deep understanding and knowing.
I think collectively, when we look at what art is able to do and the power that it has here in the Arab world more than anywhere else, you become optimistic.
There's always hope in the work. There's always lightness in the work. You know, they're reaching towards this light, this pearl, this glimmering. I see a lightness and I see a hope that is who my father was. You know, he was a person that believed that we could be better.
You know, you can choose to see darkness or you can choose to see light and hope and optimism.
I genuinely think if he was alive right now, he would have like a full TikTok channel and be like making videos and actually commenting with green screen. Like he was so technologically advanced.